So hello and welcome. I'm Frederick Dunn, and we're looking at my pond today. We're getting very close to some honeybees that are there to drink. They're collecting water. It's May now, and the temperatures have risen, and some of the oldest bees in the colony will be flying out to collect water and bring it back to the hive for many different purposes. But what you're seeing here is a close-up of the proboscis of the worker honeybee. All of the workers are females. And if you'll notice, as she drinks the water here at the edge of this pond, she doesn't move her tongue in and out. She just extends it, and she's put her proboscis together, which is in 4 parts and held together by her mandibles. That creates a seal that allows her to suck water up directly without moving her feathered tongue in and out as she would if she had some thicker syrup or she was going for nectar from flowers. Now the interesting part of this too is who's collecting the water here. These are not the foragers that go from flower to flower. These are the workers that are near the end of their foraging life. So the mature workers collect nothing but water. So once they start doing that, they don't go to flowers anymore. And the reason for that is, if they went to flowers and gathered nectar, which they're trying to get the sugar content, the carbohydrate, they wouldn't want to be mixing that with water in their honey crop, because then it would dilute the sugars. So water has a separate purpose. Of course, it's the source of all life. Nothing lives without some level of water, and beehives are no different. So she'll collect water into what used to be her honey crop, same function, different contents, and she'll fly them back to the hive. And some of the bees that have never left the hive before are going to receive that water from these water bees. So they're going to take care of nurse bees, the queen is going to get hydrated. All of the things that happen inside the hive that require the hive's reproduction to continue will depend on water content. In the wintertime, they get that from the interior surfaces of the hive as condensation forms. Now that they can fly out, water sources like this pond are extremely valuable to all of the worker bees. Now they also get inside the hive and spread water around on the brood. And they do that so that evaporation can cause cooling in a hive that's hot. So as long as bees have access to plenty of fresh, clean water, the hives can be nice and cool. And they can do that in very hot climates. Now these bees are in the state of Pennsylvania, so it's not terribly hot. In fact, this particular day and these sequences were taken during a temperature of about 63 degrees Fahrenheit, but then of course it's sunny too. This gives me a chance to get really close to these bees. Look at how hairy their bodies are. Hair has a purpose, keeps the bee's body clean, helps them thermoregulate because bees insulate bees with other bees. But if you look at the abdomen here, nice and close, it's translucent. Light passes through it. Notice how the abdomen is expanding and contracting in all directions. Its length is extending and contracting, and the diameter is swelling and contracting, and these plates overlay one another. And what you're observing is how a bee respirates. They have tiny spiracles going down the sides of their abdomen here, and they also have spiracles on the sides of their thorax, which is where the wings are attached. Bees respirate that way, and this is also how the circulatory system works. So it's very interesting to get very close and see what's going on here. We're also getting a close-up of the wings. They have 4 wings. But on each side, the wings that are in pairs connect to one another, so they function as a single wing on each side when they fly. If you look at an insect and it only has 2 wings but looks similar to a bee, it's actually a fly. We're looking over the shoulder of this bee who's probably wondering why I'm so close. In fact, the front element of the lens on this camera is only 2 inches from this honeybee. So they get a little nervous and it causes them to fly off. But we'll find others because it's a watering hole, so there'll be more coming. And if you look carefully on the sides of the abdomen of this bee, you'll see little spherical openings there. Also, people have often commented when they hear those sounds, doesn't that sound like a jungle? It doesn't seem right that those would be the normal sounds in the environment where you live, but it's true. All of the noises that you're hearing come from wild birds in the area. Some of the dinosaur sounds come from my free-ranging flock of chickens. So it does sound interesting, but that's because we're at 20% the normal speed. And here's the thorax of the worker bee, and her wings are attached right there. This is where the muscles are located. The thorax is also where they burn calories and generate warmth inside the hive. So even on a day like today, when it's in the 60s and sunny, bees have to warm the hive too. You can see her small, simple eyes on top of her head, the ocella. Bees have 5 eyes. Most people just notice the large compound eyes on each side of their head. Notice her antennae also are constantly sticking down, and she's sensing the content, probably the mineral content of the water that she's taking in. They are constantly smelling with their antennae. You can also barely see that there are multiple lenses on their large compound eyes, but we're not close enough to make that clear. Also, if you look at their hairs, they're not smooth. Their hairs are branched. That's so that when a bee flies through the air, this additional surface area creates a static charge. So when this worker was younger, she probably foraged on flowers, and the static charge in those hairs helped her attract pollen so that she could collect that, put them on her hind legs, known as the corbicula, and take those back to feed baby bees. Here again we can see that close-up look of the function of the abdomen and see the light passing through it. And of course a well-fed bee has a fully extended abdomen. So this bee is pretty much full. How much water could she carry back? About 30% of her overall body weight. And here are those hind legs. That flat rear section of this leg here is the corbicula, where she would store pollen. But remember, she's not doing that anymore because she's a water bee. You can also see their feet up close here. She's standing on a moist, sandy area. You can see the tiny claws that they use to climb on surfaces and hold their position. A little bit out of focus here. It's kind of hard to do sequences like this because the focusing is manual. You get close and you make adjustments and you try to work it out, and then what happens? Your subject flies away. Honeybees come in different colors also. Here we get a close-up of those wings. Even the wings have tiny hairs on them. Now this one's actually in pretty good shape for a senior forager. You can often tell the age of a bee, how close she is to being completely worn out, by looking at the edges of her wings. She's in good shape, but sometimes you'll notice that they're fairly torn up. Notice the hairs standing proud on her thorax there. They even have hairs on their eyes. That's right. The hairs extend out between the lenses. And the hairs on the eyes are not branched as they are on other parts of her body. Also, what part of her body do you think does not have much hair on it? That's right, her antennae. Those are bees' knees right there. Now you've seen them. Even bees' knees are covered in hair. Here we are again, up nice and close, but she's on the other side of some debris and I can't really see her tongue functioning. But since we're here, we might as well take another close look at the thorax, take a close look at the legs. Now this is a natural pond. It's 14 feet deep. It has plenty of minerals available to the bees because it's spring fed. Now you get a close-up of that foot finally. See that light pad in the center there? When she gets on a smooth surface, she'll spread her little hooks apart so that that pad will make contact and she can climb something that's smooth or damp or slippery. Otherwise, if she can get her hooks in there, she'll hold on with those tiny claws. And you can see that they're actually in pairs. Kind of like the Vulcan symbol there. And if you don't know already, honeybees are insects. They have 6 legs. They have 3 parts: a head, a thorax, and this abdomen that we're seeing functioning so close. Again, with light passing through it, it gives us a real appreciation for this complex organism. And of course, there's a midgut that the water won't necessarily go into because she's carrying water. She can, of course, consume water if she needs it. And there's a valve called the proventricula that prevents the water from going into her midgut, which is, of course, the ventricula. And it's the same when they're transporting nectar for the younger foragers. They also retain that in their honey stomach, also known as the honey crop. And it's prevented from going into their digestive system. It's important to have water sources for all of your honeybees. And once you set it up, make sure that it's constant so that they can go there instead of your neighbor's bird bath or swimming pools and things like that. A pond, maybe a koi pond, is something that your property could use. The bees would certainly go there. They also prefer to drink their water through sand. So if you can set up a sandy beach area, you can expect the honeybees to go there and stand on the sand and then stick their tongues through and get to the water level below. And then you'll see a bunch of tiny holes in the sand where the honeybees have been. See how articulate these antennae are? They move around, they smell, they sense one another with those. Constantly smelling the water, doesn't have to touch it. And here, of course, we get a really close look at how the proboscis works. And we can see that her mandibles are perfectly contoured to go up against these 4 segments of the proboscis to hold them together. Well, she takes the water on board just like sipping through a straw. And when she's done drinking, she'll fold that back behind her head. Now there are fish in this pond, of course. Any bee that falls in the water is going to be consumed right away. There are bluegill, golden shiners, fathead minnows. No shortage of predators in the water. And if we notice, even her mandibles have tiny hairs on the leading edge. These are sensory hairs that allow her to understand how much she's compressing or how much force she's putting on something. Now, if she were getting something thicker, like sugar syrup, or if she were getting nectar from a plant, from a flower, you would see the tongue extending out and drawing back up in. But we can see clearly now because you can see the tongue through that amber colored proboscis there, and it's not moving because water doesn't require that movement. And you can also, if you look up at the eyes, you can see clearly how covered they are in hairs. Well, this is the end of the narration. I'm just going to let you watch the bees and listen to the sounds of nature around them. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Leave a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching.